Spreading love, joy and cheer. We're so glad that you are here. Spreading love, joy and cheer. We're so glad that you are here. Welcome to friendship, friendship. We're so glad that you are here. Welcome to friendship, friendship. We're so glad that you are here. We're so glad that you are here. We're so glad that you are here.
To God be the glory for the great and exceedingly wonderful things that He has done. Will you give God a praise right where you are? Because certainly, just like the Bible says, we shall be as trees planted by the rivers of water. And let me be honest with you, I'm glad that I'm just like a tree planted by the waters, because I have seen the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Come on, y'all, it's Revival Sunday, and you know how we get down at the ship. Will you give God praise right in the comment section, right at your home, because you are excited and indeed grateful for what the Lord has done in your life. If God has done anything for you, then certainly you ought to lift your hands. You ought to make some kind of noise. You ought to open your mouths and just give Him the fruits of your lips, because indeed He is worthy to be praised. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Oh, I feel like shouting right there, because the Lord has been good to us. Tell somebody right next to you, He's been good to me. He's been good to me. He's done more than I could have ever imagined. So if that's your testimony, I wish you shout back at her, brother. That's my testimony. That's my testimony that the Lord has brought me over, brought me through, and sure enough, He's brought me out. Give God a praise, because indeed He is worthy to be praised. Listen, Friendship family, it's Sunday, and we are grateful that you have joined us for the beginning or the kickoff of our virtual revival. It is our prayer that this week will be a week of unlimited blessings, that God will continually pour out into your life as a result of your having joined us. Let me be honest, this week we have an excellent lineup of preachers that are going to communicate out of the depths of their heart through the Spirit and the works of our God, Jesus the Christ. During this week, we pray that God's everlasting word and truth will continue to be your shield and your buckler. I am thoroughly excited this morning that we have sharing with us the gospel message of Christ, the Reverend James Wesley Dennis III. This brother accepted the call to ministry at the age of 18 years old. During his earlier years, he also preached to stuffed animals, he preached to family members, and he shared the gospel on his grandmother's porch with the neighborhood children. My brothers and sisters, this is a talented and skilled preacher that can preach, and he will preach. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in religion from Morehouse College and a Master's of Divinity degree from Vanderbilt Divinity School. He is an ordained itinerant elder in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. James is currently serving as the pastor of Bethel AME Church in Darlington, South Carolina. He is the youngest pastor in the church's 128-year history to serve as the senior leader. He is indeed leading that congregation of builders that are committed to building hope, building lives, and building a future in the city of Darlington. He is indeed married to his best friend and better half, the lovely Miss Jocelyn White Dennis. Brothers and sisters, please join me in giving a warm friendship welcome to Pastor James Wesley Dennis III.
This is the day that the Lord has made. We shall rejoice and we shall be glad in it. Friendship, let me just celebrate your pastor and First Lady, the Reverend Daryl and Alyssa Cunningham, who is leading this congregation in excellence during this time of pandemic. I cannot tell you how grateful I am to be a witness to your ministry, but not only to be a witness to your ministry, but to be numbered among those who are called your friend. I'm telling you, friendship, you have one of the best pastoral leadership teams in the world right now. They are creative, they are leading with excellence, and they are making a difference in the community of Chester. And so I want to let them know how proud Jocelyn and I have been to witness their ministry and to celebrate them on this day as they continue to move forward in the grace of God. We thank you so much for the invitation to share. Would you come with me to the Gospel of St. John the Evangelist? St. John chapter 5 tells a story of a man at a pool. St. John chapter 5, and we'll commence reading in verse 1, culminate reading in verse 9. Hear the word of the Lord. After this, there was a festival of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now in Jerusalem by the sheep gate there was a pool called in Hebrew Bethesda, which had 5 porticos. In these lay many invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been ill for 38 years. When Jesus saw him laying there and knew that he had been there a very long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up, and while I am making my way, someone else steps down ahead of me." And Jesus said to him, "Stand up, take your mat, and walk." And at once the man was made well, and he took up his mat and began to walk. Would you pray with me? Now, God, let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. Let me just ask you a question this morning. How bad do you want it? How bad? How bad do you want it? You know, we must have had the biggest backyard in the entire neighborhood. I mean, you walk outside and all you see is yard. And I never understood why our backyard had to be the biggest. I mean, we lived within the city limits. We were not out in the country. And there was no need to have a backyard as big as our backyard. And the reason why I know the backyard was big is because it was my chore in the summer to mow the yard. To this day, I hate mowing the yard. I hate cutting grass. Not because it's a difficult task or that it's boring. I hate mowing the yard because my grandmother had rules and expectations of how and when the yard should be mowed. The first expectation that she expected that the yard be mowed every week. It didn't matter if a single blade of grass had grown or not. I had to get out there and cut the grass. The second expectation was to mow the grass early in the morning. It was a rule that I could not mow the grass after 9 o'clock a.m. I had to wait to the next day if I missed that 9 o'clock cutoff. That's because she didn't want me out there in that hot Mississippi sun falling out. So I had to mow the grass while it was still cool out, while the dew was yet on the roses. Some of you know what I'm talking about. And y'all, I'm not a morning person, so it was a struggle for me to get up around 6:30 to make sure that yard was mowed. Her third expectation, I had to mow the yard in straight lines. She didn't want the finished product looking any old type of way. She wanted a yard that looked like a professional had come through there and manicured the yard on hands and knees. Yeah, she would walk those lines and tell me where I messed up. And we didn't have one of those riding lawnmowers. We had a push lawnmower, and I had to push and drag that lawnmower across the yard, making sure that those lines were not crooked. Because if they were crooked, I know that she would have something to say, and I will be right back out there going back over those lines. You know, the front yard wasn't so bad. It took about 20 to 30 minutes to mow. It was pretty flat and it really went by like a breeze, but it was that backyard. That backyard took hours to mow. I know I stayed in that backyard dragging that lawnmower back and forth for about 2 hours in straight lines in the hot sun. And to make it worse, the backyard was hilly and it had dips in it. And the last time I mowed that yard was the week I went off to college. And I promised myself that I would never mow that yard again. And y'all, I thank God because I've kept my word. But let me tell you how my grandmother lost her mind and what she did to me one fall. One fall while I was in junior high school, I wanted the newest Nintendo Game Boy. And all of my friends had a Game Boy and would be playing with it while they were waiting for the bus to pick us up. And I wanted to be in the numbers. So one day after school, I went to my grandmother and I asked for a Nintendo Game Boy. And after begging and pleading with my grandmother said to me, I will buy you a Game Boy if you rake and remove all the leaves in the backyard. Now, y'all, I told you that the backyard was huge. And not only was it huge, but it was also flanked with 2 large pecan trees. And during the fall, there would be fallen limbs and pecan shells and leaves everywhere. And my grandmother told me that if I clean the entire backyard, she would buy me that Game Boy. I said to her, Grandmama, I can't clean that backyard. That's too much now. I can barely get through mowing the backyard. I can't clean the backyard. And my grandmother said to me, then you don't want a Game Boy. And y'all, to this day, I've never had a Nintendo Game Boy. I decided that I was all right with playing on my friend's Game Boy rather than raking and cleaning the backyard to get my own Game Boy. And y'all, while you're laughing, here is the revelation. The reason why I've never had a Nintendo Game Boy is simply because I didn't want it that bad. Let me repeat that. The reason why I've never had a Game Boy is because I've never wanted it that bad. I mean, I wanted a Game Boy, but I did not want it bad enough to get out there and clean the backyard. And I never asked my grandmother about that Game Boy again because I knew that it would require me to do something for it that I did not want to do. And I hope you really catch that revelation, because that may be the reason why some of your dreams and your visions haven't become reality yet. Yes, God will give you dreams and God will give you visions, but those dreams and visions can only become reality when you decide that you want it bad enough to go out and do some work for it. And many dreams and visions have died because people lack the will and the desire to sacrifice until it comes to pass. Here's why. We all have a tendency to make decisions off of emotions. Disappointment about how you look in a mirror will make you go out and get a gym membership. The frustration of being broke will make you think about how you spend money. The anger of broken, bad relationships will help you see how you need to make better relationship choices. But the problem is that your emotion-backed decision will only last until you run out of momentum. Let me say that again. When you make decisions based off of your emotions, they only last until you run out of momentum. That's why some of us got gym memberships and have only been to the gym once. That's because your emotion-backed decision will only last until you run out of momentum. And when you run out of momentum, you got to have something else that will make you get up when you don't want to get up. You got to have something else that will make you work when you don't feel like working, make you show up when you feel like hiding. You got to have some willpower and some desire in order to make your dreams a reality. And I don't know who I'm talking to today, but God told me to ask you a question. Do you really want it? Yeah, I know you got that business ideal. You want to start that company, but how bad do you really want it? Are you willing to work for it when everybody else walk out on you? Are you willing to work for it when people tell you that what you thought was a good ideal isn't a good ideal? Are you willing to work for it when the money dries up and you don't know where the resources are going to come from? Are you willing to work for it? I know you're trying to get back in school and get that degree, but how bad do you really want it? Are you willing to work for it when your dream school rejects you? Are you willing to work for it when you have to sign those student loans and pay tuition out of pocket? Are you really willing to work for it while you study long hours and change your lifestyles to get better grades? How bad do you really want this thing? How bad? How bad? How bad do you really want this thing? And I just want to talk to somebody with some willpower today. I came to talk to somebody who would say, no matter what comes my way, no matter what happens to me, no matter what obstacle may come, I'm going to keep on working because I want to see my dreams come true. I'm going to keep on working because I want everything God has for me. I got the willpower and the desire to work because I want it really bad. And this is where we find Jesus and a sick man in the Gospel of John. Jesus is looking to intentionally do some miracles and show some signs to persuade the people that he is who he said he is. You see, the people don't believe that he is the Son of God. And so Jesus believed that if he can just do the miracles, if he can just show some signs, then people will start believing and start talking about how he is the Messiah. And so he gets to Bethsaida. He starts looking for someone to heal, and he finds this man who has been sick for 35 years. And he asks the man, he says, he says, sir, do you want to be made whole? And the man looks at him, and I couldn't stand what he did next. Instead of jumping up to receive what God had in store for him, this man makes an excuse. He says, sir, I have no one to put me in the pool when the water is stirred. He makes an excuse. And I always know, Pastor Cunningham, I know you know this too, but Pastor, I always know when people want to tell me no. They do one or two things. Either they tell me no or they make an excuse. Excuses are what people do when they lack the courage to say no. And the problem is that when you make excuses, you rob yourself from the opportunity to deal with the real issue at hand. You rob yourself from the opportunity to deal with the issue that's been holding you back. You can't move to the place that God wants you to be unless you first acknowledge and be honest about what's holding you back. And what his excuse did for him was to deflect from the real issue and place the blame on something or someone other than himself. And y'all, we do that all the time. We like to blame everybody else but ourselves. We like to blame all of our trouble on everything else but ourselves. But what I love about Jesus is that Jesus knows how to look past the excuse. He looks past this man's excuse and he gets down to the real issue. And he says to this man, if you want to be made whole, you're going to have to do three things, and then I'm out of your hair. The first thing you're going to have to do is do what you could not do. Do what you could not do. Jesus tells him to stand up. Standing up was a signification that he was getting started. And y'all, the most difficult part of making your dreams a reality is getting started. Getting started requires that you decide that you are tired with the way things have been working and you desire something new. But the reason why getting started is so difficult for us is because we have learned how to tolerate the old stuff. We have learned how to tolerate the old, unhealthy, and life-threatening realities that's dangerous for us to be in. I want you to understand something. This man has been sick for 38 years. He's been sick for 38 years. He's been sick for 38 years. And he has learned how to tolerate his condition. He has learned how to negotiate his own complacency. He knows that if he could get to that pool, he will be made whole, but he really doesn't want to get to the pool because he knows that if he just lays right here in this spot day after day, then people will feed him and people will give him money. He has now conditioned himself to enjoy his suffering. He had become so comfortable in his lifestyle, and his lifestyle added no real benefit or growth to his life. And Jesus sees that, and Jesus has to ask him. He has to jerk him back into reality. He says to him, do you really want to be made whole? Because for what it looks like, you look like you enjoying yourself. You look like you're comfortable. You look like you really don't want what the things that you say that you want. Do you really want to be made whole? And Jesus says to him, if you want to be made whole, then the first thing you got to do is stand up. Stand up. And some of you gotta stand up. You gotta stand up. I know you've been talking for 25 years that you were gonna go back and get that degree, that you were gonna go start that business, that you were gonna go write that book, and you have not stood up yet. But today is a new day, and this is the start of a new week, and you have the rest of your life to stand up. The first thing he says, do what you couldn't do, but discredit. The second thing, discredit what was. Jesus says to him, stand up. The second thing he says is to take up your bed. Jesus tells him to take up his bed. Jesus knew that if he did not take up his bed, then he could easily return to the place that had kept him down for so long. That's because his bed was a part of his being. He was familiar with that space. He was familiar with that cot. He was familiar with that bed. And if he would have left that bed there, he would have come back to the bed, come back to the place that made him comfortable, come back to the place that he had called home for 38 years. You know, sometimes the best thing to do is to just move. It's to move on. It's to take everything you got with you and to just move. Sometimes the best thing you can do is delete that phone number. Sometimes the best thing you can do is to throw away that picture or to cut loose that friendship, because in order for you to get free, you're going to have to cut the chains that's holding you back. And Jesus says, pick up your mat, because that mat had more willpower than he had. Pick up that mat. Because if you leave that mat here, that mat will call you back into the life that you once had. And we don't have time for us to keep going back to the places that God has delivered us from. Now it's the time to be moving forward. And if we are going to move forward, then we're going to have to pick up our mats. Do what you could not do. Discredit what was, but finally be determined to see what will be. Jesus says, take up your mat. Stand up, take up your mat, and finally walk. You got to be determined to see what God has in store for you. And some of you don't have the willpower because you really don't believe that your tomorrow could be better than your today. But I got news for you. If you stick with God, God will take your tomorrow and make it brand new. And sometimes that requires for you to see your tomorrow brand new, even when it doesn't look like it's going to be brand new. When I was in high school, I was a freshman in high school, and I was in band. I played the alto saxophone, and my friend Kendra and I had managed to be the only freshman saxophonist in the symphonic band, which was the top high school performing band. And I was fourth chair and Kendra was fifth chair. And we, fifth chair was the last chair, and we were in the last two chairs, not because we were bad players, but because they had some upperclassmen who were just better players because they had more experience. And so I was fourth chair, Kendra was fifth chair. And so I was content, y'all. I was just happy to be in the symphonic band. I was just there for the participation sticker in the first place, but there was something inside of Kendra that made Kendra wanted to be in the first chair. She was not satisfied with being in fifth chair. Kendra wanted to be in first chair. And so what Kendra would do is to come to school an hour early, and she would practice her scales and she would practice her music. And by the time I got there, I could hear Kendra just warming up and practicing and getting stronger. And after a while, she started to challenge her way to the top. She challenged me and she beat me, and I was last year. I didn't care. I was just happy to be in symphonic band. She kept challenging her way up to the top, and y'all, those challenges came with some setbacks. She didn't win every challenge, but by the end of the year, she was in first chair in the symphonic band and had made history as the first freshman to be a first chair saxophonist in the symphonic band. And when I asked her why did she do that, she said to me, when I got here on the first day of band practice, I didn't see myself in last chair. I saw myself in first chair. I saw where I wanted to go, and I got myself together to go where I wanted to go. And that's all I came to tell you, friendship, that if you want what God has for you, you're going to have to learn how to see some things. I know it sounds crazy, but you're going to have to learn how to see that book. You're going to have to learn how to see that business. You're going to have to learn how to see that new opportunity. You're going to have to learn how to see that new open door, even when all the doors are closed, even when all the opportunities are taken, even when there are no more chances to be given. You got to learn how to see God opening up doors and making opportunities. You got to know that the God you serve can take a little bit and make it into a lot. That's why the scripture says, now unto him who is able to do exceedingly more than we can ask or think. We serve a God who can make that crooked way straight, who can make the rough places plain, who can make the high places low, who can make the low places high. Is there anybody out there who knows that you serve a God who can take what you see in your mind's eye and make it a reality, all to the glory of God, according to the power that's at work in you? Be blessed, friendship.
My goodness, did we not just receive a word from on high? Was that not a word? I am telling you, my heart is rejoicing because of the word of God that has been shared through Pastor James Wesley Dennis III. My brother, thank you so very much for that phenomenal message. Friendship, may that word inspire us to move forward as we continue to transcend the times of which we are in. My, what a word. After having heard that word and you desire to meet God and join in fellowship with the Friendship Church, please send us a direct message. We will reach out to you in effort to join you by faith to help you reach the heights unknown relative to your destiny in God. We desire to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to understand what it means to be in fellowship with Christ. Listen, all of us have burdens. All of us have carried some heavy things, but this is not the end, because we will stand by faith and continue to move forward together. Listen, let us pray. Our Father and our God, Lord, we are grateful for the time of which you have blessed us with, for the word of which you have given us. God, we feel your presence and your anointing, and we know that the best is yet to come. God, I pray now that you will bless us, that you will bless our messenger, and God, that you will allow us to move forward, not hindered, not compromised, but God, we will move forward by your will, your way, and your word. Now, Lord, we praise you, because some of us have had some ups and some of us have had some downs. But Lord, you are still in the blessing business. So God, we count it all joy, and we think it not robbery the suffering that we are enduring as of now, because we know in due season we will reap if we faint not. God, we praise you for the word that reminds us to be steadfast and unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. For as much as we know, then our labor is not in vain. God, we thank you for giving us a spirit and a willingness to labor by faith, to walk by faith and not by sight, and to always be reminded of our purpose that can only be found in you. And it's in Jesus' name the children of God shouted amen, amen, and amen. Beloved, I wish to say thank you so very much for partnering with us in our efforts to do ministry. We are grateful that you have the right or the option to give, and you do so Sunday after Sunday, week after week, and we are thankful by your willingness to commit your resources to helping us do ministry in a far greater way. You may give via Givelify, or you may give via our church website, friendshipchester.org, or you may come down to the church between the hours of 9 a.m. and 12 p.m., and then on Monday between the hours of 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. We are asking that in addition to your tithe and offerings, that you will give a revival offering, as the Lord is going to continually bless us this week through our revival worship services. We are grateful that if you are even giving by envelope or giving in person, that you will write in on your envelope revival and then put your amount next to it. Also, for those that are using our Givelify app, you may also go and select the offering tab that is presented there on that app for giving. Listen, we are just grateful by what God continues to do in our lives and in the life of our church membership family. And we are grateful for all of our friends that are joining us, because indeed we are going worldwide. I believe by faith, and I know that God has already orchestrated and designed a plan for the Friendship Missionary Baptist Church. So if you're on board, just shout, I'm on board. And we are grateful and blessed by your willingness to commit. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will have our formal benediction on Tuesday. God bless you.